Hello, parents. Welcome back to Parent Shift, a place where we speak about conscious parenting. Today, I want to speak about a very common issue which possibly doesn't get thought about or discussed as much as the issue exists and bothers us. And this is the question of why parents and children argue. Now, usually, if you ask this question, parents would say, my children don't respect, and this is how they are, youngsters don't listen, yada, yada, yada. And if you ask children the same question, they say, my parents simply try to overpower, they don't think about my choices, my needs, they don't respect my point of view, etc. But is that all there is? Let's discover today and peel this layer by layer. I request you to stay with me. It's a slightly long video, but there are important things that I'm going to speak about here. And do leave what you're taking away from the video and any additional questions that you have in your comments. When you do that, when you subscribe, when you come back, when you watch all these videos, it gives me a lot of focus and attention towards doing more in this area. With that, let's get started. So let's understand, arguing really doesn't solve anything. As much as a parent wants the best for their child, the child also wants to experience life at its best. And in this focus, what happens is there are some lines that get missed because parents invariably want to guide and the child wants to be heard. And a guiding parent often may talk over or ignore what the child is wanting to say. And a child whose need is deeply to be heard often forgets to hear what the parent is saying. Invariably, what happens? A conflict. Both think only what can happen at this point in time, how at this point in time the other side needs to give in. The issue gets even more complicated if the two parents have conflicting point of views. Then this not only becomes a tripartite struggle, but it also becomes a murky affair where sometimes parents tend to play good cop, bad cop, and the child also aligns with one of the two parents, then it becomes even worse. Little about that later, but let's right now focus and think of this as both the parents have a consistent point of view and voice. And this is something that I keep saying in all my parenting conversations, that both parents should have a consistent style, consistent approach, something that's agreed between them, basis rational and established bodies of knowledge. But coming back to our topic, when parents and children argue, they both think only what can happen at that point in time, and that becomes a tussle. Because what is the parent looking for? The parent is looking to share and express his or her love and care, but that love and care is coming across in what? Control. The child, on the other hand, wants to understand and see the space that it is operating in and express its freedom and identity. And in trying to understand what it can do and express the freedom and develop its own identity, it often hides behind the defiance towards his or her parent. And this problem gets intense in the 4, 5, 6 age group, then sort of maybe tones down a little, but again in the teen it develops further and goes on. Unfortunately, when I speak to many parents and children, they both have this key word that they are holding on to, that my child is constantly defying me or my parent is constantly trying to control me. In reality, the parent is trying to express love, which he or she is not able to. Invariably, the child is wanting to examine freedom and identity, which it is not able to convey. At the end of the day, they both forget that growing up and letting go are both emotional processes. And it's very important to learn these emotional processes. The parent needs to learn the emotional process of letting go, putting boundaries, giving few instructions, but things that can really help the child, but at the same time letting the child explore. The child also needs to understand that growing up is a process and an emotional process. It cannot have it all. There are certain boundaries and instructions it needs to take from both the parents and then work according to that. And if it violates boundaries, there are consequences. But then that's where the struggle is. So to begin with, let the all of you as parents and children need to understand this. In fact, this is a video which I would request all parents and children to watch together, so that you understand that both of you need to grow up, both of you need to let go, and both of these things are hugely emotional processes, because along with wanting to achieve what you want to achieve, which is parents wanting to achieve love and children wanting to achieve freedom and identity, there is a give and take. And that give and take, if it is not agreed, if the conversation is not fine-tuned, it becomes a power struggle. And that power struggle can make it very difficult for both of you to understand what your words are, what the meaning of those words are, the intent behind those words, and how those words can contribute to each one of your well-being. Yes, both parent and children need to think about each other's well-being in the process, not only be married about their own point of view. With that, let's think a little deeper. And this is an invitation that I give all parents and children, that is your opinion really a fact or a validated truth, or is it something that has sound basis? And this is where we will understand that opinion is not the same thing as experience or understanding. And both the parent and the child need to have their own experience of the other person. It's not about carrying your own experience. It's about the experience of the other person. It's about the understanding of the other person. What parents need to understand is that all opinions that we share, and in all walks of life, wherever we share our point of views, are first coming from our selfish vested interests and the fear or habits that we carry. And in expressing those point of views, what we are really doing is projecting our habits, projecting our fears, and not really being aware of the other person. So what parents are doing then, parents are ignoring the awareness and the reality of the child, and parents are sinking deeper into their own habits and their own fears every time they dig in and have a point of view with the child. If they were to understand the child, if they were to give in, if they were to go through that emotional process of, like I said, growing up and letting go a little while back, then parents will understand that there is so much more that they can offer to the child along with working with the child. On the other hand, children, they assume that their feelings are fact. And let's also remember that the brain in children is not completely developed up until the age of 20, 25, and it goes on developing. But there's a very important part of development, especially the frontal lobe. And that frontal lobe is responsible for complex task processing, complex processing of emotions, and helping you ground yourself in reality. And children don't have that. And that's where children often confuse that whatever they're feeling at that point in time is their ultimate truth. There is nothing beyond that. In fact, it can be very paralyzing for children when they have feelings and emotions and experiences. It could be bodily, it could be mental, like the feeling of fear or the feeling of a desire that they want, or gratification that they want, or fear, a fear, or something which is related to betrayal or social isolation or insult, and this is why children are so prone to teasing and bullying, etc., because they're not able to deal with those feelings very well. So what children need to understand, again, in their growing up and letting go, they need to understand these complex emotions and begin seeing the truth and the right things. And this is where both the parent and the child need a lot of experience. Experience about understanding each other, experience about knowing where each other is coming from. Experience gives lesson, understanding gives timing. If both the parent and the child can understand each other, it will be great for them, because they will know when to speak up, when not to speak up, how to put a context, how to put words out there, because both need to get the sense of timing. It's not just the parent, it's not just the child. Both of us, both the parties need to get a strong sense of timing. What is the right time to speak to the other party and guide them? If this doesn't happen, both sides will think that their opinion is truth, and they will stop listening to each other. So remember, as parent and as children, Your opinion is not the same as experience and understanding. Gain the experience of the other person, gain the understanding of the other person. What you think may come across as much better ideas if you incorporate that experience and understanding. And both sides need to do it. Otherwise, it will stop all listening. And when listening stops, arguments happen, fights happen, escalations happen. Both sides make unrealistic, unwarranted, harming choices, and choices that will not just harm each other but the family itself and the future of the family, future of the parents, future of the child itself. Don't do this. It can be a very dangerous situation. Do not escalate. Do not escalate a small argument into much bigger issues. Sometimes these issues continue for years and years, to the extent that the child makes so many mistakes that there is no coming back. The parent has so much of distraction and so much of challenge that then there are collateral damages that the parent has to experience. So be cautious. Let's take a couple of more steps in terms of understanding both experience and understanding of each other. Now, let's understand that opinions without experience for both the parent and for the child is like control or rebellion. Okay, so let's say it's the parent. Now, if the parent doesn't understand the world that the child lives in, and the world that the child lives in as a child is very different than the world that the parent lived in as a child. Like many of us, like me, I did not grow up with a lot of technology around me. The best piece of technology that I had when I was possibly growing up was a VCR or a dish antenna which came up. Today, those are absolutely redundant things, and we are living in a world of streaming and 3D gaming and AI and whatnot. Children have so much more of access to things that it's very commoditized. Technology is commoditized. Friendships, emotions, social space is commoditized. Whereas some of us grew up with very little real exposure. So parents have to understand the world that the children are living in today and understand that that world is very different than the world that they grew in. Children, on the other side, have to understand that their parents are not always outdated. Their parents have gone through the evolution. They have seen change. They have seen accommodation. They have seen adjusting. They have gone through crises. They have gone through economic and social ups and downs. There's a lot of life patterns that parents have seen, and in those life patterns, in the survival of those life patterns, the parent has learned intellectual and emotional lessons which can be very valuable for the child. And that's what the child needs to understand. So this is the experience that both sides need to have. Parents need to experience and understand the world that the child is growing in today. And the child needs to understand that the parent has had a fairly long and rich journey, and the parent has studied and understood life patterns at least a few decades more than the child has. And there are valuable lessons to come up. So when you do this, you eliminate significant challenges, because when a parent advises without context, it is always control, and it will sound like control to anybody. And when the child expresses without understanding and respect, it will always sound like rebellion. So if you don't understand the other side, you risk bringing this challenge. Parents risk being control freaks, and children risk being rebels without a cause. So both sides need to ask this question: am I speaking from real experience and understanding of the other side? Parents, are you understanding the child's world? And children, are you really understanding the experience and the depth that the parent carries before both the sides react? So temper your opinions with the real experience and understanding of the other side. Now, on the other side, if a parent and a child don't bring certain amount of wisdom and insights into a conversation, it can also sound as a lot of ego, and ego which is inflated, ego which is up there in the face. Many times parents lecture and they lecture without really any empathy. They don't look at a sense of time, they don't look at the understanding of examples, they don't look at how the child is taking the examples. Like many parents would go through and explain hardships that they had to experience in their village or their times. The child will not relate to that because they were not living in those times, right? Like when I was growing up, I have waited for a bus at a bus stand, a public transport for hours at a stretch. It's not relatable today in the world of Uber and so many other ways that you could travel. So there's no point of giving those examples. The examples that a parent gives, the ideas that a parent gives have to be relevant to today's age. Otherwise, you will shut down the child. On the other side, let's understand, when children argue without perspective, they miss the hidden care. They need to understand. Now, this is also a parent's job to help the child to understand how to gain that perspective. Why are you saying what you're saying? And the child needs to understand that is it engaging in a drama or is it engaging in a logical argument. The child needs to understand, has it really understood what it is being told, or is it just reacting thinking that its feelings are the right things. So that's what children need to do. So let's take an example here. The parent is talking about certain career choices that you could make, and the child says, no, this is the only thing I like, and this is the only thing that I want to do. And the child is not thinking about economic implications, because it thinks that pursuing its interest is the only thing. And I'm here talking about 15, 16, 17-year-olds and how they argue with their parents on preparing for their career and what they want to do in life. Many times the child also needs to have the understanding to look at viability, feasibility, and what its ambitions, lifestyle is as compared to what it is going to do with the career, and will that career really be able to sustain the child in the long run. Children often don't do this, and they end up in arguments with their parents and a huge tussle. I'm not saying here that children need to listen to their parents and necessarily sign up for that style of career that exists, like going in for an engineering or a doctor's degree, or becoming a chartered accountant, or applying for government jobs, or such things. No, that's not what I mean. It's simple that children need to understand the logic behind how decisions are made, and how decisions like careers can have huge implications: financial, lifestyle, social, mental health, and then start working towards that decision, and which is where the child then needs the support of the parent. So parents, when it comes to wisdom, think about what is relatable to the child. Children, when it comes to wisdom, understand that you need perspectives, and some of that can come from parents. When both of you start working with each other, children and parent, you will see that your sense of timing, your tone, your truths will improve significantly. You will work with each other to do things better. Will all disagreements go away? Not necessarily, but you could work through this. So at the end of the day, what is it that parents and children need to focus on when it comes to acting with wisdom with each other? You need to focus on protecting the relationship and not protecting your egos, your sense of self-preservation, I am right, etc. That's what you need to do. So temper your emotions with understanding, like I said a little while back, and temper your opinions with the wisdom of understanding where each other's world is. That's how you need to get done. Now, can understanding and wisdom alone help the parent and the child completely? No, not really. And that's where behaviors come in. So it's not just about what is in the mind or the process that we follow in the head about understanding the other. It's also about how we appear. So many times the child may understand what its parents are saying, or when the parent understands what the child's needs really are, but the behavior that they use to talk to each other, that may be a problem. And this is where intelligent parents and intelligent children also could fail, which is bad conversation, bad habits, and that which is creating a battle of respect between each other. Now, this could be about either one of the two parties raising their voice, drawing comparisons, judging each other, calling names, using guilt, etc. And all of this weakens trust. And I'm not going to say that parents alone do this. I've heard so many children raise their voice, talk badly, use guilt, etc., tantrums, comparing judgments with their parents. As much as many parents say, hey, look at that child, children sometimes say, my friends' parents don't do all of these things. So all of that. So be very, very careful with what you're doing, the way you're talking, etc. Also, for parents, it's very important to understand that children are often mirroring the tone that they receive. The disrespect that they receive is often the disrespect that they give back. So if today your children are disrespecting you in some way, then you have to stop and ask this question that, am I responsible for this somehow? Is this something that I have invited upon myself? Because many times it could have happened that you as a parent have misbehaved with the child. Or better still, what happens, the two parents, they have argued amongst each other, called them each other name, or you are sometimes doing that with your relatives or families or friends, and the children have witnessed this. So either directly or indirectly, children are picking up your style, your language, the way you talk, the way you respect, the mindset and the skill of social conversations are picked up from elders. And here's a simple example. So as much as some parents would do the emotional blackmail of saying, I do so much for you, I earn for you, I give you everything, so you better respect my decision. The child can turn that emotional blackmail around and say, you never listen to me because you are older and you think that you know everything. Where is this going to head? You pick up example by example, you will find a mirroring that the child is doing of the parent. So to a great extent, behavior and habits are something that the parents need to exercise. If the parent is going to do silence, withdrawal, sarcasm, anger, violence, the child is also going to pick up shades of this. So if behaviors have to be corrected, the parent has to be optimal in displaying and teaching those behaviors to the child. And remember what I said some time back, children have that deficit of the frontal lobe. It isn't developed. So it's difficult for them to process those complex emotions and feelings and to learn this regulation. It takes time, but if you are at it and if you have the right help, you can get there. That's what you should focus on. So at the end of the day, with all that we just deciphered, the problem of understanding each other, the problem of wisdom in your conversation, and the problem of bad behaviors and habits, what should you do? What's the way to get out of this? And the way to get out of this is common rules, common boundaries, and that's the line that you need to hold. So if the child has to listen, the parent better listen. If the child has to be respectful in its tone and expression of ideas, the parent better do that. So rules have to apply on both sides, how you talk, where you talk, when you talk. So the why, how, and what have to be consistently applied to both sides. Remember, correct the person, correct the behavior, not the person. And this applies both sides, whether it's the child's dignity or respect and authority of the parents. Both sides have to respect, and only if wrong behavior is there should you point out a correction that they need to do. So the person doesn't become bad. So if a parent screams once, doesn't make that it's a bad parent. That's what the child needs to understand. Or if the child makes one or two mistakes, doesn't mean that the child is a bad person. It's just the behavior that needs to be corrected. Also, both sides need to first speak to understand, seek an understanding of the other side. So parents need to advise the child only when the child feels safe to hear. The child needs to challenge the parent only when the child sees that the parent is assuming a lot about what the child's feelings or needs, etc. are. That's the depth to which we need to try to understand each other. Set some rules for each other, but also leave a lot of room for feelings, because that the warmth of the parent-child relationship is about the genuineness. A little bit of tantrum here and there. Both sides need to know that there is a line to be drawn, but do express the emotions, and within that, protect the boundaries that you need to work with. Don't punish each other for the expression of emotion. The family cannot be a mechanical place. The family has to be a little bit of salt and pepper, and a little bit of sugar and spice all put together, that's when the flavor of the family comes out. So be tolerant of each other, accept each other's bad behaviors, but yes, have boundaries, have rules, and build the emotions within that. Remember, parenting is about guiding a growing adult. Don't think that you are only raising a smaller version of yourself which you need to better. Many times, parents are trying to have the child exceed themselves as their expectations. So often, it's their advice is the nostalgia about their own selves where they failed in life, what they could not do, which they are applying to the child. They forget that the child is a unique person. Don't do this. Children need to be treated as unique adults who are growing up, and from that perspective the parent needs to approach and do whatever best they can. On the other side, children need to understand that growing up is about taking the best from your adults and elders and using that as an accelerator and a stepping stone and figuring out the rest of the things very quickly with that jump start. Stand on the shoulder of the giants that your parents and your elders are. That should be the mantra for children. So, parents, please make sure that you are talking to growing adults and those are unique. They are not copies of you which you need to chisel and make better. They are unique. They will find their own way. You do what you can do best. Children, you need to know that you have giants on shoulders, on whose shoulders you can stand and jumpstart your life. Make the best of each other's conversations, ideas, and exchanges. Grow each other. The parent grows while parenting. The child definitely grows with good parenting. Take care of each other, have conversations, build stories, build a life. Don't argue and take each other apart.